So, to no great surprise to anyone, well, anyone with anything approaching sentience, Donald Trump was victorious in the Republican primary in New Hampshire. Though victorious doesn't do justice to the brutal, ball-clenching beatdown Trump gave to the rest of the candidates with the same ease a regular man would brush his teeth, or a young, unaccompanied child would arouse Jared Fogle. And my God, the tears.
Yes! Yes! Oh, let me taste your tears, Scott.
To paraphrase the future Michael Moore, that is if he fucking lives for another 15 years, the salt must flow! If this keeps on happening, I'll be dead by the general election from a goddamn sodium overdose. I will admit, despite hindsight confirming for me that Trump's victory was as unpredictable as a fucking sunrise, I felt pretty damn nervous. Reality has a nasty habit of smashing the hopes of people and pissing on the wreckage, even if those hopes are based on the most inevitable of events. Fate, destiny, God, whatever you want to call it. It's a fucking piece of shit that would kill a child just to watch its mother cry, before raping the mother to get to the father like in my most immoral of hentai games. But with further reflection, I realized that my unease wasn't due to fate, destiny, or God in its desire to make me snap. It was the mainstream media that caused it. And refreshingly, it wasn't done out of incompetence, just bias and a shocking lack of professionalism. You remember how 2 paragraphs ago I mentioned the absolute arse hurt Trump's victory has caused? Well, the temper tantrums extended beyond the usual Tumblr-using suspects and went straight into the media. The Huffington Post, which I'm told by Google is a news aggregator founded by, among other people, fucking Andrew Breitbart? Wow. Anyway, the Huffington Post couldn't muster up an ounce of professionalism in the face of an outcome they didn't like, and instead threw the most glorious bitch fit I've seen in years. Their 2-bit, poorly done copy of the Drudge Report just made it even better. When you see giant red letters in all caps screaming about how the sky is falling because a candidate they didn't like won a vote, you know someone in Huffington Post's editorial staff snapped, downed a bottle of whatever hipster shit people like that drink, and tried to kill themselves. A choice that I absolutely applaud, because whoever authorized this fucking mess of a website needs to take a long bath with a toaster. The Huffington Post has somewhat of a history with Trump. On July 17, 2015, in a post by Ryan Grimm, the Washington bureau chief, and Danny Shea, the editorial director of the Huffington Post, it was decided Trump would be covered in the site's entertainment section instead of their political coverage. This policy was reversed when on December 3, 2015, Ariana Huffington, co-founder of the Huffington Post, wrote a blog post on the site titled, "A Note on Trump, We Are No Longer Entertained." The post, which was written shortly after Trump called for a temporary halt on Muslim immigration to America, explained that Trump coverage would be back in the political section, but with one important caveat. We believe that the way we cover the campaign should reflect this shift, and part of that involves never failing to remind our audience who Trump is and what his campaign really represents. This meant that every single story would end with an editor's note like this. Donald Trump is a serial liar, rampant xenophobe, racist, misogynist, birther and bully who has repeatedly pledged to ban all Muslims, 1.6 billion members of an entire religion, from entering the US. The shift from, "this is a joke, please don't listen to him," to, "he's a madman and he's evil, please don't listen to him," was of course expected. Huffington Post's crying did nothing to his poll numbers or to his followers, and as a matter of fact, neither did their decline of his proposed Muslim ban. This recent NH exit poll for Republican voters shows that 2 out of 3 voters would support a temporary ban on Muslims. The Republican voters agree with Trump, and that absolutely terrifies them. Huffington Post writers are watching their ideology, if you hadn't guessed by now they're a very left-leaning website, be directly challenged by not just one politician, but a sizable portion of American voters. They're panicking, and they're losing the one thing that journalists require to be respected and listened to: objectivity, or as close as a human can get to it. And when they lose that objectivity, they lose large portions of their audience, left only with a core group of the type of fanatics that will crucify them if they so much as show a hint of wrongthink. So what I'm saying is, expect to see an influx of narcissistic hipster fucks in the unemployment line very, very soon. But it wasn't just Huffington Post that spat the fucking dummy. The New York Daily News, owned by Mort Zuckerman, had this image as their front page after the New Hampshire primary. This isn't the first time the Daily News has taken to Trump, with previous covers showing him decapitating the Statue of Liberty, and as a dead clown walking after the Iowa primary. Mort Zuckerman, who once had a similar grudge against fucking Spider-Man, wears his bias on both his and his paper's sleeve, with even Bill fucking O'Reilly and Fox contributor Bernie Goldberg saying that this sort of open bias in a non-editorial section is so fucking retarded it makes the baby with microcephaly look normal. I'm not going to talk about the Daily News as much as Huffington Post. After all, the Huffington Post is shoved into my face every fucking day by virtue of being online and having an Australian edition that the same empty-headed fucks who post BuzzFeed articles on Facebook gush about to an alarming goddamn degree. And because of that, it has earned a rather high position on my things I would smite if I was God list. But I would just like to point out that calling 1,406 Republican voters mindless zombies is as smart a move as sticking your dick in a blender. Yes, New Hampshire isn't New York. That high school geography education is really coming in handy, isn't it? But this sort of thing doesn't happen in a vacuum. Trump voters are a loyal lot, and they don't take kindly to being called mindless zombies. And I can guarantee you that at least some of the Daily News reader base are Trump supporters. With how he's polling nationwide, there has to be at least a couple. In this modern era, where news is available at a click of a button, and the newspaper is dying a slow death, you do not want to alienate portions of your reader base by calling them names. And in the end, it's just so fucking unprofessional. Could you imagine going to, say, an accountant, and after he takes your money for the job, the accountant asks you what your political leanings are? And if you answer wrong, the motherfucker spits right in your face. You'd walk out of there and go look for another accountant, wouldn't you? Well, unless you're into that sort of thing. Then you'd tell him you're a Nazi and open your mouth for the saliva salvo. Though the majority of this video has been focused on shit, don't think it's all feces in this sewer pipe. There's at least one diamond down here. The Morning Joe show on MSNBC was one of the first programs to take Trump's campaign seriously, and for that they're officially head and shoulders above the rest of the idiots who deemed any Trump victory impossible. Morning Joe's fairness towards Trump was a complete surprise, considering what network they are on. And while I'm sure the fact that Donald is the secret father of Minka Brzezinski's children had a part in that, it also comes down to the fact that host Joe Scarborough, former Republican congressman and member of the self-styled New Federalists, doesn't take any shit from anyone on K Street, Wall Street, Main Street, or any other street you care to name. The guy talks about what he wants. And for the past several months, Trump and his upward trajectory have been on his mind. This fascination with Trump's campaign, and honestly why wouldn't he be fascinated, Trump and Bernie Sanders, who Morning Joe also talks about regularly, have taken the rules that Joe once had to play by as a congressman and thrown them off a fucking bridge, has attracted the attention of outlets like the Washington Post. In an article on December 10, 2015, Eric Wemple of the Washington Post criticized the show's attitude towards Trump, stating that laughter when Trump is interviewed comes a bit too frequently. Certainly any proper TV news show encourages moments of levity, that's fine. Yet Morning Joe approach to Trump, too much fun, too much exposure, has scared what could journalism into the friendly confines of a morning social club. The motherfucker doesn't even criticize their questioning. In fact, earlier in the article he writes that they do ask Trump decent journalistic questions. Instead he goes for the laughter. As of the time of writing, yesterday's, or last night's if you're an Australian like me, Morning Joe had a minute-long joke between Joe and Willie where they talked about whether Joe wore Hillary Clinton's debate outfit better. And in response to the Ted Cruz porn star ad scandal, Mika kept asking what the difference was between softcore and hardcore porn. Were these too much fun as well? Was it too humorous for you, Eric, when Joe made a joke about being tied up in the basement to explain his absence? Did you spend 10 minutes crying as you wrote 300 poorly edited words about when they end each commercial break with little clips of funny political moments? But then we get to the real reason why Eric Wemple is mad. Too much exposure. But you see, Eric made a typo here. Not surprising considering the rest of the article. He meant to say too much fair exposure. It's why Eric cried over this, but didn't write about when Morning Joe gave Ben Carson or Jeb Bush the same treatment as Trump, or when Joe constantly praises Bernie Sanders for his excellent campaign ads, or when Joe lamented about Carly Fiorina's treatment by the ABC who left her out of their debate, and Fiorina's later departure from the primary. You see, this article was written in the strange time just after Trump talked about banning Muslim entrance to the United States for a temporary time. And the mainstream media had collectively decided it was time to metaphorically assassinate him, because they were all too scared of guns to literally assassinate him. Morning Joe committed the cardinal sin of that era. They gave Trump fair coverage. Fair coverage that as a presidential candidate, Hell, as a fucking human being, he deserved. And goddamn, Joe even took him to task for his Muslim ban idea. He hung up on him and went to a commercial break during an interview with Trump over it. But you know what he did after that? He put his fucking big boy pants on and continued doing his job of not being a biased little bitch. Funny how professionalism works, isn't it? As we roll closer and closer to South Carolina, the first winner-take-all primary in the election season, and what I believe will be a real battle, the old nerves are returning. The little niggling questions. What if Trump loses? What if they were right and he was always just a sideshow? What if Ted Cruz manages to steal another state by screwing over Ben Carson? And then the numbers come in. The latest Real Clear Politics poll as of time of writing for the South Carolina Republican primary has Trump leading 17 points over Ted Cruz, while the Reuters National poll for February 12 has him 21 points over Cruz, 39.8 to 18.6. And his rallies still regularly pull in record-breaking numbers. But what really is comforting is that Trump has apparently learned from his stumble in Iowa and is investing in his ground game. However, despite my seemingly supernatural ability to be correct about absolutely everything, the coin that is the South Carolina Republican primary is still up in the air, and I can't tell what side it's going to land on. As I said at the start of this video, reality is a cunt so massive it could use the Eiffel Tower as a sex toy. So the question is, does it want to dig over the Trump supporters or the Cruz supporters this week?